Chances are you've heard of X-rays, but you've never heard of N-rays, and there's a simple reason for that. Starting in 1893, there was a series of really amazing discoveries in physics, including X-rays, radiation, ultraviolet rays, and the fact that electrons were the constituent of cathode rays. Lots of ray things going on. But this led to the expectation that there were other forms of energy that would soon be discovered. So when French physicist Prosper René Blanlat, and I did look up the way to pronounce his name, announced he had discovered N-rays while trying to polarize X-rays, it really came as no surprise. Now, Blanlat was a respected scientist, and his discovery was given the due respect that he deserved. That is, until several other notable scientists, including the famous Lord Kelvin, were unable to duplicate his results. One of those other notable scientists was American Robert Wood, and Wood arranged to meet Blanlat in his laboratory for a demonstration of N-rays. However, before the presentation began, Wood quietly removed an essential prism that was part of the apparatus used to detect the rays. He also replaced one of the test subjects with an inert piece of wood. As the American scientists suspected, the experiment did not fail anyway, and Blanlat insisted that the machine had shown the existence of these N-rays. But almost everyone else in the room was not convinced. Wood published his account of this incident in Nature magazine, and by 1905, nobody believed in the existence of N-rays anymore. But in that 3-year period, over 300 papers were written by some 100 scientists establishing and declaring that these N-rays were real. So why did I bring this story up? Because it's a cautionary tale of how scientists can be misled by what they want to believe instead of what reality is showing them. In this case, due to a lack of proper skepticism. But more importantly, it also illustrates how science corrects itself, throwing out bad information when it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. Do you think the scientific world does a good job correcting itself? If not, give us a call because the show is starting right now. Hi, welcome to another episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Kelley Laughlin, and I'm just as surprised to see me sitting in this seat as you are at home. This is a live call-in show that happens every Friday where we ask you to call at Friday at 7 p.m. where we ask you to call in and tell us what you believe and why you believe it. And if you'd like to call, you can at 1-512-991-9242 or through your computer at tiny.cc/calltw. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the promotion of atheism, critical thinking, secular humanism, and the separation of religion and government. And my special guest today, I had the pleasure of working with them one more time, is Planet Peterson. How you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be back.
Yeah, I'm really psyched that I got to work with you again. I had so much fun the first time. I mentioned to you before the show, I kind of feel like you got shortchanged because you didn't get Dan this week. But well, Dan's busy planning his wedding next weekend, so wish him luck for that. Excellent. Before we get started, though, I want to do the results of last week's We Want the Truth, or the WWTT segment. And last week, we asked you to combine two conspiracy theories to make the ultimate conspiracy theory. And here was our three favorite answers. Number one, from Ironclad Alibi, the ultimate conspiracy, combine two conspiracies to make the ultimate one is these chemtrails are actually vaccines being sprayed by the government. That's not a bad one. That's not a bad one.
I could get behind that, maybe.
Yeah. Number two, from Godwin 7, chemtrails are actually just humans replying to crop circles. I really like that one. I thought it was interesting, too, that chemtrails made it into the top three twice. So But our ultimate number one answer for the ultimate conspiracy comes from Eli Slack, good friend of the show. The government is putting moon landing in our water.
They would too.
Yeah,
that's what's good about that conspiracy theory. It's believable.
I love that answer.
The government would do that.
It's great. The prompt for next week is make up your own religious counterpart for a scientific claim. The more absurd, the better. Do you have one?
I parody this all the time when I do debates with people. They tell me, well, evolution's false because the Bible says X, Y, or Z. And I just show them a copy of my book, which is called a book. And this book is true. That proves it. So I will just tell them that they're wrong. I'll just counter whatever their religious claim by saying, oh, yeah, well, I got a book and my book is true. That proves it.
That's all you need to know. Yep. The book itself tells you. We were talking a little bit beforehand, and I was saying that maybe the fact that earthquakes are not caused by plate tectonics, they're actually caused by demons bowling. I remember when I was a kid, that was what they told me about thunder. It was angels bowling up in heaven. And I believed that. Of course I did. I was a little kid, right? Of course you believe something like that.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to be working with you again. I really feel honored. I heard you have something new though in your life. Can you tell me about that? What do you got new going on?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, I came out with a new book, Facts That Aren't True, Popular Myths, Misconceptions, Old Wives' Tales, and Rumors. So if you just look up the title and then search my name, you should be able to find it pretty easy on the internet. It's about 120 different random, like the subtitle says, myths, misconceptions, old wives' tales, and rumors, stretching from history, culture, religion, geography, the human body, animals, nature, and just all kinds of things. It's a fun read. Oh, that does sound like you got an example of one of the old wives' tales or pieces of misinformation. Oh, like an old wives' tale would be. I don't feature this one prominently in the book, but you lose 90% of your body heat through your head. Well, if that were true, you could go outside in a hat and keep 90% of your body heat. That's not really how it works. I never thought about that before, but as soon as you said that, I got the visual of a person walking around I live way up north, walking around up here with just a hat on and not freezing to death. And it's just such a ridiculous idea. Yeah, that was great. Thanks for that visual. That was awesome. My pleasure. So this is what your second book now? Yep. Yeah, my first book, Rational Answers to Stupid Questions, that came out last year. And that's it's not really a debunking book, but it's a counter to all the most common anti-scientific jargon that I had run across online talking to people for years. So if you want to know what to say to your weird coworker who thinks the earth is flat or that evolution can't be true, you can look up that title as well. That could be really useful for a lot of people, I'm sure. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, definitely unfortunately. I really wish I didn't have to write that book, but you do a lot of debunking though, don't you? Kind of. Not really. I don't like research. I don't go into like conspiracy theories or anything like that. Although, they're fun to think about and hear about. But I kind of debate and have conversations with people. So I don't know if that necessarily makes me a debunker. I'm just I'm out there in the trenches, I guess I would put it that way. Sort of. Just trying to fight back against misinformation and yep. Bad ideas. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I wish more people were out there doing what you were doing. So we need to get a Planet Peterson army behind you, get people out there fighting that kind of thing. Yeah. What is now you've got to, I'm sure there's many subjects that have come up along the way of you doing this. What is probably the one that you think is the most egregious topic that really needs to have some kickback against it? Oh, gee, it has to be flat Earth just because of how monumentally stupid it is. And, with with evolution deniers, which is probably the most like pernicious one. There's at least some attempts at, logic and what could accidentally be called science sometimes in that. But the flat earth stuff, just the way I watch people just buy into the claims hook, line, and sinker without even, there's no way they've given it a millisecond of thought. It's just, yep, it's flat because of blank. And it's like, even that doesn't make any sense. But you've never thought about it before. But here, let me take the 2 seconds it takes to explain to you why that doesn't make any sense. So that's, yeah.
I think that's a good way to attack these kind of ideas too, is to look at them from a logical sense and see if they actually, if I put this together with this, does it actually add up to 4? To this, yeah. And I get the same thing with crystal powers, where people just really don't think about what they believe, and then when you say, well, if that was true, then this would happen, and they just look at you like, oh yeah, right, I didn't even think about that. So everything has energy and the energy affects each other. And I was like, so that means when you walk down the street, every step you take, you're being affected by some other energy, and your whole mood is changing every step. You walk past a parked car, you walk past another person, you walk past a fire hydrant, and they all have different energies that are affecting you. So it doesn't make any sense that the crystal is doing that, right?
That's such a Scorpio thing to say.
Oh, that was great. That was great. I do have a Scorpio rising.
Oh. Did you check out the great alignment that's going on right now?
Yeah, actually, I actually walked out of because the sun's going down a little bit earlier than it does farther south of us. But I walked outside the other night, and there was just this big, huge, bright star in the sky. And I was like, wow, Venus is exceptionally. But then I realized what was going on is that it was all the stars together, right? Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I missed the eclipse last night, though, because it was totally overcast here, unfortunately.
Yeah, we got clouds here where I live as well. Today's kind of a special, almost scientific day, too.
Today is.
Mm-hmm.
Today is. You want to elaborate on that?
Well, it's 3.14, which is Pi Day. In 2015, that was even crazier because it was 3.1415, or you could say it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Pi Day. It's Albert Einstein's birthday. And Stephen Hawking died on March 14th as well. So if that doesn't prove that the great God of science is real, then nothing does.
It's a scientific miracle.
It's a scientific miracle. There are no coincidences.
So it got me laughing. It totally took my brain away. I just totally lost my thought. This is your whatever compelled you to come back onto this show a second time?
Well, I mean, the first time, my supporters are just like, we want you out in that community talking with people, get your name out there. So I was like, hey, I'll do that. I shot out some emails to different groups, and I got invited here, and I was invited back, and I just said, I'll take that. It was it was a good time. So
I'm glad you came back. I really am. Like I said, I had a good time with you the first time. I hope we get a bunch of good calls tonight. I don't see anything in the queue right now. Call lines are open. Everybody give us a call. I've been talking to a lot of people online all week, begging you to call in. Now's your chance. If you really want to get those ideas across that you keep trying to talk to me about online, call me up. Bring it on. So, what is it that you would like to do? What would be your main goal with what you're trying to do today with educating people?
Oh, you mean like today specifically, or like what I'm up to?
I mean, like, the big picture. What's your big goal?
Big picture. I'm an educator. I have been a science teacher for the last decade. And I think education is important. I think it's critically more important now than ever. I mean, if we think about the world 200 years ago, or maybe like pre-industrialization, which 200 years ago we were industrializing, but not all the way there. How much impact and power could one person yield? Not really all that much. And so, ignorance back then, it was, it's unfortunate, but how much harm can that actually cause? Not all that much. But today, mostly because of industrialization, one person literally wields the power of thousands and thousands of their predecessors. And because of the global interconnected world we live in, one person, not just by virtue of that anybody could go to the hardware store and buy some insecticide or pesticide and then carelessly dump it and poison hundreds of people. Anybody could, that was almost impossible to do not that long ago. But not just that, but the ignorance side of it, one person who ends up in a position of power can affect billions of lives potentially by being, not so guided by the truth. And if I believe in principles like democracy and things like that, well, then the way we shape the world we live in is by popular vote and things like that. And so in a complex and, well, just complex society like we have today, a civilization or a population that is not well informed is probably almost guaranteed to make decisions that could potentially destroy themselves. And so we can't afford to be ignorant anymore. Mm-hmm. And so, it's not my job to be a polymath on everything, but I know what I know, and I kind of know what I'm good at. And I try to get that message out there so that we don't end up betraying the progress that's been done. And so that's essentially why I do what I do and why I think it's important.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think trying to educate enough people. I see Scott's giving you a clapping in the background, our backup post. I think going out and educating people so that they are creating as least harm as we can possibly get them to create is a noble goal. So, yeah, I commend you on that. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this. I'm hoping to try to get people to stop thinking about or stop bad thinking. Right? There's just a lot of really illogical bad thinking, and a lot of it is because there's a lot of bad information getting put out there, and I don't know if some of this information is being put out there purposefully, or if it's just people who really believe it and are just parroting what they've heard because they really believe it. And I think that's a lot of it, right? Especially with a lot of the with the woo stuff. I want to believe this thing that doesn't really fit science, but I really want to believe it. These people say it's true. I trust these people, so I'm going to believe it too, even though all the evidence is showing me that it's not true. It's really kind of confusing to me that somebody would make that decision to believe something like that. Does that ever strike you as weird?
Not really, because I've read a lot about the psychology of decision making and how we form beliefs and like political proclivities that people on any side of the spectrum have. There's a lot of good information on that. Jonathan Haidt's book, The Righteous Mind, is fantastic. Daniel Kahneman, some of his books about decision making are really fantastic too, because they go into innate biases that we all have. Because look, we all have them, and I don't even know that the problem with biases is, and the thing about being wrong is you're kind of the last person that would ever know it. And so, yeah, I can recognize that all this goofy stuff that I hear online, that these people are on the wrong side of the facts with regard to that. There's no possible way that I'm right about everything. So if I'm just applying the principle of charity to these people and just recognizing that what they're falling short of is something that is part of human nature, unfortunately. Now, it happens for them in a way that's very laughable, but it happens for all of us in ways that aren't so obvious. And so, no, I mean, I don't fault people, like, for example, for being religious. I don't fault people for, we've been talking about conspiracies kind of in the green room. We were doing that in a little bit today. there are true conspiracies. So I get the sentiment that I can sympathize a little bit with we never landed on the moon. I can't really sympathize with that the Earth is flat, but the motivation behind it is something that's, kind of normal, I guess.
Yeah, I have a hard time with a lot of the ones that they come up with. Some of the things I've seen are just crazy, crazy silly. One of the craziest ones I just heard the other day, that the automatic sinks in bathrooms is because ghosts keep turning the bathroom sinks on. So they made the automatic ones so the ghosts couldn't leave the water on all night long. That has got to be one of the craziest ones I've heard in a long time. So
you ever try to plug something in and there's like you can't see the plug, you have to go behind something, like maybe it's next to your nightstand or something like that, and you find the holes and then you're like, okay, it's right there, and then you go, but it won't go in. There's this, it's not a serious idea, but there's this joke of the idea that there's the boogeyman is just as soon as you don't look, he puts his hand up and covers it up. So I was like, what? It's right there. Okay. And then you go and then he puts his hand over. So
that's awesome.
The sink
that's
idea.
Awesome.
It sounds like the same thing.
Yeah, same kind of silly weirdness. I'm amazed at some of the things that come up with about ghosts and stuff. So, and it just really, a lot of it is, it is related to the USB gremlin, Scott. I think, you know what? It might be the USB boogeyman who's putting his hand out. He's not. He's in your computer and he's sticking his fingers in the USB hole, so you can't get it in there right every time. Right?
It's funny. We have USB A, we have USB C, but I've never heard anyone use the term USB B before. So that's the USB boogeyman, USB B. So we got I'm actually fidgeting with one right now. We got the standard USB, we got the USB C, and then we got the USB boogeyman. The first USB was the printer one, the one that's kind of square. I think that one they now call the USB A. I'm not 100% sure on that though.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I am like a tech idiot. If anybody watched me try to do a show earlier this week, I'm a tech idiot. So, we have some. Oh, I see. I'm about to say we have a call, but they're screening it right now. So how about we do one of the optional screenshot things that we can do that fill up some time. I got one here. Let's do screenshot number 1. It says you should always discount anything a Christian says. Everything they say is a lie. I don't have any relevant context for this statement. It was obviously somebody said in context of something I said. I am going to kick back on that. I don't think that that's true. I don't believe that Christians have anything wrong with them. I just think that they have been conditioned to believe the way they do, and most people who are conditioned into a religion started out becoming that way when they were a young child, when they didn't have a way to fight back or think back against it. So I don't think that anything that a theist says is a lie, or they're being dishonest, or there's something mentally wrong with them, or there's something scholastically wrong with them. And I really, really wish that as atheists, as a whole group, we stop that trope, because it's really doing nothing but snapping back and making us look like the bad guys. So, All right, let's see if, I guess the caller hung up, unfortunately. So I guess let's do another one. Sure. Okay. You know what? I should have asked you what you thought about that. I'm sorry. That was my bad.
Yeah, you basically put it perfectly. Yeah.
Hey, well, okay. Here, this is number 2. Well, I would like to answer, an answer on the soft dinosaur tissue found in fossils. There is no way it's 65 million years old. In fact, there is soft tissue found in fossils of every layer, including Precambrian. soft tissue 500 million years old? Nope, something is very off here. And something is that it's your understanding of what it is, that there's no soft tissue there. It's a fossil of soft tissue. That's totally different thing. Eric, you got anything you want to add to that? I mean, if you know what this is about.
I've never heard. Oh yeah, I know what they're talking about. I wrote about this in my first book. I don't know what they're talking about with Precambrian stuff. I've never heard that before. There are fossils. You may have a stromatolite because you have quite a collection. I've got stromatolite fossils, but they're in the other room. We have fossils that are produced by soft tissues from the Precambrian, but not of soft tissues. But even what was her name? It was Mary Schweitzer. Yes. Thank you. So what they have found in, I believe it was in T-Rex, this has been found a couple of times. They aren't finding soft tissue. What they find is there are some molecular or some biological molecules still in there that after rehydration remained a little bit flexible. And these are like collagen fibers, which is kind of like dead tissue in a way. Your cartilage, your tendons, our hair, they're not vascular. They're not really living tissue. It's stuff that our bodies build up. It's part of our bodies, whatever. So those have been found. Now, we didn't know that this ever existed because nobody had ever looked for it before. But it's just really hilarious that they say the tissue can't be 65 million years old because it has been found. I was like, that's not how you tell how old something is. This isn't a dating technique. It's also just put it in the dictionary of logical fallacies, argument from incredulity, insert dinosaur soft tissue here. So then how old is it? And how old the question you'd want to ask then is what's the maximum age something can be where there's no organic tissue remaining? And they obviously don't have an answer for that. What you can do is, what I love to do is prove to them that this doesn't even make any sense. Literally, according to you, not according to me, the satanic atheist evolutionist or whatever, according to you, because if these fossils are only a few thousand years old, then soft tissue should be the overwhelming norm, not the 1 in a billion exception. That doesn't make any sense. You don't take outliers and then use that to extrapolate and draw conclusions about the rest of your data. That would be like saying Shaquille O'Neal is 7 feet tall. All humans are 7 feet tall. You really mean to tell me that there are people that are 5'10" out there? No, there isn't. Shaquille O'Neal is 7 feet tall. That's so incredibly silly. And like we know for a fact, like bog bodies are really incredible. And we have bog bodies that are as old or older than the, traditional timeline for when the flood happened, because that's what they're going to claim is the event that caused all these fossils to form. Well, we have all these bog bodies. They're the right age. None of them are fossilized or even partially fossilized or even 1% fossilized or anything like that. So when something is buried in the perfect conditions and is the age that you claim all these things are, you get zero fossilization. These couple of organic strands found in a few exceptional fossils is not proof of anything other than something we didn't know before. The soft tissue thing, some other examples from that, they claim to have found fossilized red blood cells and blood vessels. They didn't. They found basically like the impression of them. Like when you a leaf fossil, you can see the veins of the leaf and everything. Well, the veins aren't actually there. There's just something in its place because it became permineralized. I think maybe is the word. What is the term for that? I don't remember. It gets precipitated, but there's a term for replacing tissue with mineral. I don't remember exactly what it is, but anyways, that's yeah, I don't know. I think that's all I have to say about that.
That's it. I even Mary Schweitzer herself has come out and said that they're interpreting her work incorrectly. You know, and just come out several times and said it. So I, you know, I don't. How do you get people to not believe something, even when the person that they're quoting is saying that they're wrong? It amazes me.
Yeah, I don't know what you do about that. If somebody's going to push an agenda, they're gonna look for whatever they can, whatever inconvenient fact they can to try to sow doubt in anything. And that's a very common theme from what I've seen. It's very rarely, if ever, about presenting data to support a case. It's just, well, let me try to pick holes in an alternative idea. That doesn't increase the likelihood of your idea being correct, even.
It's per mineralization.
Okay, so I did get that right earlier. Good.
Yeah, it was. You did. That's why I didn't correct you at the time. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure he's right. I'm not real good at, I'll be honest with you, for somebody who's a geologist, I'm not real good at rocks and fossils. I'm great at minerals, but but I can look at almost any mineral and tell you what it is without knowing what it is beforehand. So I'm really good at those.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a lot of people don't realize that a lot of sciences have their little niches, little specialized niches. You always think of it with a doctor, like this guy's a nephrologist or whatever, the urologist, whatever. But you don't ever think of that. A lot of people don't ever think of that with sciences. And there is just so many branches of geology. It's incredible. There's some I have no knowledge of whatsoever, like hydrology, petrology. Those are all both forms of geology that I really don't have any knowledge of it for the most part at all, even not much of general knowledge. So that's the way it goes. What were you trained in?
My undergrad degree was in biology. When I started college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought about maybe doing physical therapy or something. So the biology degree is what you do before you go into like a master's program for that. But after a couple of years, I just thought I have no interest or like desire to want to do this. So then I got into education. So technically I they don't call it this, but you really are. If you're a high school teacher, you're a double major because you have to take the 40 credits or whatever in your major. For me, it was biology, but then you have to take all the credits for the School of Education as well. So biology education kind of sort of was my undergrad. And then my master's degree is in education. But I would say what I know the most about with respect to science would be evolution. It just fascinates me. I read a lot about it, and having to teach things, you really have to learn a lot. It's incredible how much you learn content-wise as a teacher. Well, I mean, you should at least. That's how it happened for me, I guess I would say. But yeah, the physics stuff, I'm less than useless when it comes to those sorts of things.
Yeah, I always feel like an idiot when somebody will ask me some question about geology that's really not in my field at all, and I feel it, and I can't answer it. But I really am a geologist.
No, you gotta believe me. Yeah,
you gotta believe me. We do have a call though, that I'd like to pull up if that's okay with you. We got Dan from Canada, and he wants to talk about the Landenberg incident in Saskatchewan, Canada. I'm not sure if you know about that one, Eric.
It rings a bell, but I gotta look it up.
It was a UFO incident. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Wow.
I'm doing pretty well. Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Good. Thanks for calling. This is now I didn't look this up. I didn't brush up on it or anything, obviously, because you just called. But wasn't this like a farmer saw several UFOs, right? Wasn't that this incident?
Yeah. He saw a bunch of somethings hovering in a field, and his farm equipment wouldn't start up, and he couldn't drive away. And so he was stuck watching these things until they took off. And when the RCMP investigated, they actually found marks in the soil where something had been, round circular markings. I guess round and circular is redundant, but yeah.
Yeah, round answer. Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. But I wasn't going to say. I wasn't going to pick on you. Dude, and they had no other explanation for the circular marks?
From what I've found on this story, which I've just been starting to dig into it a little bit, it's unexplained.
Yeah, I don't know. My thing, whenever people ask me about UFOs, when now I started calling them UAPs or whatever, I have a very boring answer for that. Whenever people say, "What do you think about them?" I say, "I think they're unidentified." You know, as the name implies, because we just don't know. I'm not against the existence of aliens. If you ask me, do I think they've ever been to Earth? No, I don't think that. Do I think there's life somewhere else in the universe? It seems just too absurd to not be the case. I don't think Earth is very privileged or special with regard to any physical property that it has to be the only place out of hundreds of billions of known galaxies, each with probably 1 trillion planet-like bodies on them, that this can be the only place life exists. That seems too silly to be true. But that stuff coming here, I just, the whole the UFO thing, the unidentified things are not the kind of evidence that convinces me of it, because they're just kind of textbook arguments from incredulity. I don't know, therefore aliens.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And what we have here, like while Planet Peterson was talking, I did a little bit of research into it, and from what it appears is that there was only this one eyewitness, one person. So we're dealing with, you know, the word of one person saying this thing, and I don't know how much we can trust this person. Who, he's just a farmer. I get it. Probably everybody thinks he's an honest guy, but maybe he's doing. Why did he do this? He's not making any money off it. Maybe he's doing it just because he wanted people to remember his name. I mean, that's a lot of people's motivation for a lot of things that they do. I just want to be remembered after I'm gone. And maybe that's what this was. He's going to be, and interestingly enough, what I found out in 2024, the Canadian Mint actually issued a commemorative coin over this incident. So it is being remembered. That's crazy. That's the first time I ever heard of a government officially recognizing a UFO incident. I'm sorry, Dan, what was that?
Yeah. I was going to say it's actually one of several UFO coins the Mint has put out in the last year.
That's really, that is funny. I'd love to see those.
Is, but...
You know, there was this experimental flying saucer made in Canada. It was called the Avro Canada VZ9, and they made it, I think it was like in the 50s or something, but it fits the bill of the description for this incident almost perfectly, except the item, it couldn't like fly up into the sky, which I think that's part of his claim. He watched it and then it flew up, I think, but it looks exactly like it. And I don't know, it seems like the kind of thing that could maybe leave a pattern on the ground like that or whatever. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that we have no idea what the heck it actually was.
Well, I just looked up these coins and they're darn cool, man. They're made out of silver and they glow in the dark.
Oh, nice.
I know, right? I want one really bad now.
They ship internationally for now.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
Get it before the tariffs kick in, though.
Most governments will ship their coins anywhere as long as you buy them, right?
Yeah.
Well, what are your thoughts on this incident, Dan?
Well, I've been on a kick of looking at Canadian unexplained incidents lately, and just kind of curious to see what people aren't talking about. But this one sticks out to me because there was a physical sign of something being present, not just a story that, oh yeah, I saw them, but they left no evidence whatsoever. So it's interesting that there was an investigation, there was something documented, and we don't know what it is still. I doubt it was military equipment, because that just seems far too functional.
I'm not real convinced about the circles in the ground. I'll be honest with you. I've seen photos of supposedly circles left by UFOs. There's a few of them out there. It's something that's reported quite often. I think this would be a close encounter of the second kind, right? If they leave physical evidence. I'm not quite positive, but I know I've heard of circles being left before. I'm not totally convinced. I've seen some people who have analyzed the vegetation underneath the circles, and seen people say that they look like that they look like they were affected by heat and other strange things. But again, I'm just not convinced. I've never seen anybody who was really qualified to do a really extensive bit of research into these things. Like here we have an RCMP, right? Policeman's out there in the field. I don't know how much of an expert he is on UFO circles. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah. I mean, he's probably an expert in shenanigans.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if he's seen something he hasn't seen before, okay, this is a circle, and the farmer's telling me that he saw a UFO, so the circle has to be connected to the UFO. I'm not sure that we can make that connection. That's all I'm saying.
No, I mean, that's fair. I mean,
we don't even know if the farmer, Edwin Furr was the farmer. We don't know if Edwin went out there and made those circles and then made the call too.
Yeah.
I know that the RCMP report says that there was no sign of somebody driving up, but it doesn't say anything about somebody walking up. So.
Well, yeah, okay. I didn't have much more than it was an interesting story, I guess, but
it is an interesting story. I'll give you that. It is. I mean, I'm not gonna discount it as an interesting story. It is. I'm just not gonna. I don't want to say that it's something true, or it's something that certainly doesn't convince me. That's where I guess I'm going with it. But it's definitely an interesting story.
Yeah. If you've never looked into how people make crop circles, it's actually pretty cool. And you can see by virtue of the way they do it that, yeah, it would leave no trace behind, because you essentially, all you do is you just get a board and then you attach like 2 strings to it. And then you just stomp on the board and walk forward, and it flattens everything in front of you. And, you're not using machinery or equipment, like heavy equipment or anything like that. So you can walk in, do it, and walk out. And it just looks like it was put there by by something, but it's just a person. So yeah, did the guy do this, or was it something that we just don't know what the heck it was? What we can say is that everything about this incident seems to be unidentified. So that's the only conclusion we can really make.
Wait, did Dan, did you find any of this story convincing yourself? Or I'm not going to hold it against you if you did, so don't be afraid to say that you did. So
I wouldn't say convinced. It's just one of those ones I want to spend more time looking at if I ever have the extra time.
Sure. And the availability information. That seems like a big problem that I encounter when I find these incidents and I go to look more about them. I find out that there's really not a lot of information available sometimes.
Well, this is the most interesting thing to ever happen to that town. So
Yeah,
I still talk.
probably in Saskatchewan, completely
It's
all
kind
of
of like
Saskatchewan.
that's the thing. How I don't understand how they got away. It's Saskatchewan. They'd have to leave the province to be out of sight.
It is pretty flat out there. So what? I had another question. I started laughing, and it popped out of my head because I started laughing. See, that was your fault, Dan. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to make. I'm going to blame it on you.
I am a poor influence on Kelley.
Do you know of any other incidents in Saskatchewan? I know there's several Canadian UFO incidents, but I'm not sure that the second guy's making out with the alien. I think. I know there's been other Canadian UFO incidents, but has there been any more in Saskatchewan, or is this like the big incident? Do you know?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I've got a Google search going for a few other things, but they seem to be sprinkled around the country.
I remember probably about, I'm thinking 8 or 10 years ago, I remember hearing about a UFO up in Ontario, I think.
Saskatchewan sounds like a Bigfoot sighting hotspot to me.
Yeah, it sure is. It is. Maybe
I figure
maybe the UFOs were picking up or
the
dropping off Bigfoot.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe Bigfoot is an alien.
I've heard that said before.
Oh, jeez.
You know, and I've actually read people trying to put correlations between UFOs and Bigfoot sightings. I've actually seen that done. You know, I've also seen another explanation for Bigfoot being dimensional doors. That Bigfoot comes through a dimensional door, stays for a couple of days, and goes back to its original dimension.
I heard that's not the photographer's fault. Bigfoot is actually blurry.
Yeah. Which is scary to me that we have blurry animals running around the woods.
Oh.
What do you look like? I don't know. He was blurry before he attacked. I don't know what it was that attacked me.
Well, we do have a couple other calls on deck.
Yeah, I was going to say
the Saskatchewan incident. We don't really have anything else we can really do with that.
Right.
So.
I was going to say, Dan, I did want to thank you for calling. I do have a couple more. Well, I've gotten a lot of calls in the last couple of minutes. So I just looked and there was this many calls, and I looked again and it doubled in just like 2 minutes. So I'm going to let you go, Dan. Thanks for calling again. I always appreciate when you call. Call us back. Find out, see if you can find out more about it and give us a call back and update it.
Take her easy, guys.
Okay, who do we go to next? We got Maurice has been waiting the longest, so we'll bring him on. He wants to talk about false and lucid dreams, unsure if false memory is possible as a dream. Whoop. I may have just dropped him by accident. Oh, here he is. Wait a minute, I got him. Oh, no, I did. I dropped him by accident. Sorry, Maurice. If you're listening, please call back. That was my bad. I really feel bad about that. Made a mistake. In the meantime, I'm going to take Ransom from Wyoming, he, him. Simulation hypothesis and the double-slit experiment is what he wants to talk about.
All right,
Ransom,
now I'm on. What up, heathens?
How you doing? What do you got for us?
How are y'all tonight?
Good. How are you?
Well, this is we're on a call delay, so let's take 3 seconds just to stop so we get on the same track with the same page.
Okay.
All right, now we're back on sync. I'd like to talk to you about the double-slit experiment and how it may conclude that there is life outside of this universe. I'm not saying gods. I'm saying idiots that are just the same as us with better computers.
Oh, okay, I'm not sure how we can put those two together, but please fill us in.
Well, we have to start with the double slit experiment. And just a reiteration for anybody who might not be familiar with it. You throw particles at the double slit, you get two piles. You throw waves at the double slit, like dropping a rock in a bottle of water, and you hit the double slit. You get an interference pattern where you've got highs and low points that interfere with each other. Now, when you shoot an electron through the double slit, you get an interference pattern. However, when it is measured, you get a particle pattern like you'd see with matter. Now, this leads everybody to believe that electrons have a split particle wave duality, and that duality is only collapsed when it is observed by a conscious observer.
Okay.
So, in order for the universe to exist, a conscious observer must have been there to observe it. Otherwise, the universe never would have come out of the wave particle duality.
Okay. We got some massive problems here.
Yeah, I would go. You go ahead first. You go first.
First of all, conscious observation does not collapse the wave function. A measurement does. It doesn't matter if anybody ever looks at the data. The measurement causes the wave function collapse because some sort of interaction with either, you can do double slit experiments with photons, you can do them with electrons. It is the interaction, and because that information can't be recorded in any kind of way unless that particle, whether photon or electron, interacts with something else, and that's what changes its state, as I understand it, from wave-like to particle-like. So if you turned on the detectors but never looked at the data, it would still give you the I don't remember what's called when it's not an interference pattern. It would just give you the two slits.
Particle pattern.
Particle pattern, sure, we can call it that. That's fine with me. But yeah, it's not that is
pattern.
Yeah, it's not that it is observed. It is just that it is interacted with in some way. Now, observers observe the data that the experiment yields, but this is just something that's been misconstrued by journals, pop science, whatever. And people, I think it's cool and think they know what it means, but don't really know what it means. But the other thing, you said something about the universe comes out of the wave function.
Right. And I was waiting for you to say that first part because I want to touch on that first part before we get into that. But that was the old experiment. The new experiment with the quantum eraser actually splits a photon into an entangled pair. And every particle is measured that hits the right side, for the sake of argument, the right side of the entangled pair. Everything is measured, but only when they hit posts C and D are they observed. Now, when they've hit posts A and B, they're still measured, but not observed. And posts A and B pose an interference pattern, while posts C and D give you a particle pattern. So even though it's measured, without the observation, it still gives you a interference pattern.
Yeah. What's the problem with that?
Yeah.
It's the fact that if it hits post B, it's still measured, but it's not observed because the conscious observer doesn't know whether it hit 1 or 2. If it hits A or B, there's no way to tell if it hits 1 or 2. If it hit C, it definitely hit 1. If it hit D, it definitely hit 2. But if it hits A or B, you can't tell which one it comes out with, and it still has an interference pattern, even though it is measured.
So the delayed quantum choice eraser is, we would need a diagram in order to make this even remotely intelligible for our guests and for me to keep track of what's going on. Now, I don't remember all of the details.
You can pull up a diagram right quick.
I have no idea if we could. I don't know if we can do that, but
No,
it
we
also
couldn't do that.
Yeah, we can do that, but it also wouldn't help because Dr. Blitz isn't here today. Unfortunately, you're stuck with me. So you should have called last week.
Last week, yeah.
Yeah. But what I can do is I can refer, and this for anybody watching this too. Sabine Hassenfelder has a very good video going over why what people say about the delayed choice quantum eraser is not what you think it is. The only thing I can really remember is that what happens in this experimental apparatus, people claim it's doing something weird and causing the future to affect the past. But that's not what's happening, because when you look at the data, because it splits that photon and you get two interference patterns, this is part of it. But what's actually happening is if you just put the two interference patterns together, it's the normal whole interference pattern that you would normally get. So it's not, and I don't know if that's the solution for why it looks like a two-slit, a particle, but it's really wave or not. I don't remember exactly. And
that doesn't explain what happens when it hits C and D. When it hits C and D, it is actually observed, and then the wave function collapses and it turns into a particle pattern.
Yeah, I hear you, and I wish I could say more. I mean, I could sit here and listen to the video in the background, but I would just refer people to that. I mean, physicists are not they're not confused about this, about what actually happened. Well, funny enough, some of them actually are, because there have been physicists that have given sort of misinformation about this, but it's been corrected by other experts in their field.
I'm pretty sure Michio Kaku still stands by it.
Well, Michio Kaku is going off the deep end lately, so
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll concede to that one.
And again,
But
like just
yeah,
I mean,
sense.
you've heard of the fallacy of authority too, right?
Yeah, the argument from authority, where somebody has an authority in some subject, and that gives them the right to speak authority on all subjects.
Yeah, there's all again, and I also think of it applying to when you listen to somebody who's in a like say educated in one subject, and yet what they're saying about that subject isn't correct according to what everybody else who has been educated in that subject thinks. And I think that's might be what we're experiencing here, is maybe Kaku is saying this, but the majority of people in the field of physics aren't agreeing with that. Would that be accurate?
I'd like to tell you a story, 45 seconds, I promise. But there was a time in 7th grade when we had a contest amongst one half of the class versus the other half of the class, when we were trying to pick out which part of speak a word was. There was one time when a part of speech was underlined, and I held up a different part of speech than everyone else in the class. I got booed, shunned, and made fun of until I got told that I was right. So just because one person says something different than everybody else doesn't mean that the one person is wrong.
Yeah, but that's true the other way too. And that was my point. I agree with you. That doesn't mean they're wrong, but it doesn't mean they're right either.
So what we have here is we have a really weird situation where some physicists are saying that the way particle collapses due to observation. And then what's the explanation for the other half of it where it doesn't collapse due to observation? Could you enlighten me?
No, I'm not a physicist. I only half of this conversation has happened. It's gone right over my head. I have no freaking clue what you're talking about half the time. I'll be honest with you. I'm not a physicist. So, and I'm certainly not going to give explanations for a science that I have no training in at all. That's not something I'm able to do. I'm not. And
I don't have.
I'm not conceited enough to think that I can come up with a viable explanation. So,
Yeah, I don't
So
have to pay for it, but I've been studying this in depth.
Okay.
And
All right.
I need to know the name of the person who said it wasn't a observation. What was the name of that researcher who said that?
Who made that claim?
I don't know. You were the one that said it.
No, I didn't say that.
I need to read more.
I never said that. I never said that. I said that there seem to be other people who don't agree with Kaku. That's what I said. I don't know who they are. I don't know. I'm not a physicist. I don't get into physics. It's not something I'm even interested in. I don't know. I'm making assumptions off of the conversation that we're having here.
One of the two of you had mentioned a name, and I don't remember the name right now.
So I brought up Sabine Hassenfelder earlier, and she has a resource. It's just a YouTube video you can check out. I've been watching it to see if in the background here to see if I can.
Said it was all pseudoscience. I watched that video.
No, it's not pseudoscience. It's just a misunderstanding of the experimental apparatus and taking a look at the data. Because again, when you split this photon, it creates two different sets of patterns. And so what's happening? Pair. Yes, I know. So I can kind of tell you a little bit better than before what is happening in this experiment. So I just got to draw you a little pretty picture. So what happens is you get all of these particles. I got to draw a whole bunch of dots here. So bear with me. I'll try not to take too long. So this is just a big blob of dots, right? So that's the particle one, because there's no actual pattern going on here. They just all end up, they're not super concentrated.
It's two blobs.
I know. I'm getting there. What happens is when you run this experiment, when you split that photon, what it does is it creates the exact same pattern, but in two different places. Because the photon is entangled and split, it takes, I tried to circle them, but it takes some of those clusters of photons and then it puts them on one screen, and then the other cluster of photons gets put on the other screen. So it looks like a wave pattern, but it is not. It's just the cluster with certain parts of it taken out because the entangled photon was split. When you put the two sets of data together, what appears like a wave function, a diffraction pattern, or whatever the heck that's called, what appears like it in two different places, when you overlap it, it completely meshes together into what you should expect, which is the particle-like thing there. So this delayed choice quantum eraser experiment is just very, very, very misunderstood by some people. Even some extremely respectable people have misinterpreted this. And if you want to watch the video, it's just called The Delayed Choice Quantum Eraser Debunked.
Ooh, nice. That's simple. That's easy for me to look up. It's easy for everybody else to look up, and it gives me a place to research.
Yeah. So what about this? This somehow proves simulation theory or something like that? What now?
Okay, if I am right, then there must be a conscious observer to break down the wave pattern to the particle pattern.
Okay, but an observer isn't required for that.
Yeah, that's it. The observer, us as the observer, is seeing things, right? But the observer isn't required for the action to happen. It's an observer is required to affect the outcome, correct? But not for the process to happen.
With that. I think an observer does affect the outcome because of the quantum eraser experiment. I'm going to look into more of it later after I check it out. But as for now, if I'm right, then it requires an observer for the wave pattern to break down into a particle pattern. Therefore, the universe could not exist without at least one conscious observer.
the delayed choice quantum eraser, even if the future event affected the past, it has nothing to do with an observer. The experimental apparatus isn't an observer. An observer just looks at the data. The wave function collapse or whatever happens because the photon, the electron, whatever it is, interacts with something else. And that's what causes the wave function collapse. Like literally a photon striking an electron by itself can do that. There's nothing the observer does other than look at it. But if there's I'm glad
you brought that up.
If there's an observer, whether it be God, whether it be whatever simulated our universe or whatever, if there's an observer and it's out there, it's in a dimension above us or whatever, and it knows all, can see all, then all wave functions should always be collapsed because of this very pernicious and omnipresent thing that is there. But since they're not, I think we can...
Not necessarily. We're going to call you a conscious observer playing Skyrim. Let's call you a conscious observer playing Skyrim.
Okay, now, I'm playing Skyrim. Now what?
When you're looking at High Rothgar, the mountain is not rendered. When you turn around and look at the mountain, High Rothgar is not rendered. So therefore, it would not be necessary for a conscious observer to observe everything at once because it just won't be rendered if you're not observing it.
Ransom, I've got a few more calls. I'm running out of time here. I find this call interesting. I find the conversation interesting, but I really need to move on. I really do. I would love to have you call back and continue this conversation. I'll be on quite a bit over the next few weeks. If you want to talk to me, Dan will be back when he gets back from his honeymoon if you'd like to talk to him, but I encourage you to please call back, okay?
Well, congratulations to Dan. Much love, and I'll talk to you all later.
Thanks, Ransom. Thanks for calling in, and thanks for understanding. And I forgot to do a bunch of things. One of the things was a super chat challenge. I know we're running out of time now. If I get 3 more super chats, I am going to bring in a musician and give you a live folk music concert to end the show with. Just 3 more super chats. I know you guys can do it. And I have some announcements. So let's get to those. Oh, you know what? My announcements are not on my... Oh, here they are. Another way to support us is by super chats. Okay, so there's your super chat announcement. Become a channel member by clicking the join button below the video. I'm just blowing all of this, man. They will give you access to special chat emojis and early access to YouTube shorts and clips. It's really awesome. It's not very much. I think it's 99 cents. What the fuck? It's only $1. Available right now on the atheist-community.org, the wonderful website this organization upholds, are printable call-in flyers. You can post these with permission to community billboards so people know to call our show and defend their faith or whatever else they believe in. And one of the things that we really like here at Truth Wanted is to hear from you, the fans. So please, if you would like to, please email us at truth@atheist-community.org, or you can reach out to the ACA in general at atheist-community.org. And please leave comments below. I read through the comments all the time. I answer them. If you want to get a little talking with me personally, please leave a comment. And last but not least, I want to thank the amazing, wonderful, the incredible crew that backs us up, that makes me look so good. And I also want to thank, after the crew, the amazing, wonderful, I am just screwing all of this completely up, the amazing and wonderful patron of the week, Don Nelson. Don Nelson, thank you so much. We do like to shout out to one of our patrons every week that helps support the show. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate all of our patrons, not just Don Nelson. And maybe next week we'll shout your name out. So please help keep supporting the show. I got a couple of super chats real quick. Lauren Misha today, $2. I got your soft tissue right here. Dustin King, member 2 years, $5. Close encounter of the second time is actually making out with the alien, he thinks. So
Oh, okay.
yeah. So give us 3 more super chats and we'll have a concert to folk music, a live folk music concert to end the show with.
Getting to first base with the second kind. How about
Yeah,
that?
right. How about that? All right. We got James from New York. Can infinity be quantified? He wants to talk about the unified theory of everything. Hi, James. They, them from New York. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Kelley and Planet Peterson?
Good.
Hello.
Good. What do you got for us?
Okay, which flavor would you like? Which flavors? Which sparkles more to you, Kelley and Planet Peterson? Can we talk about both, or which one do you guys want to talk about? Kelley, you don't like talking about physics, so you.
That's okay. You can talk about physics because I know Planet Peterson does, so that's okay. Just don't expect me to give you a really good answer. That's all. If you want to talk mineralogy, I'm right there. But
yeah. Well, let's talk about infinity first, and we'll see if we can get to that. I want to pose the question to the both of you and see if it sparks anything different in me. What do the both of you think? Do you guys think it's possible, like, for infinity to be quantified, or not necessarily quantified, but in the sense of like that we could ever account there, but maybe in the sense that we could understand it as something that could be quantified?
Okay. Well, I mean, if quantify means to count, then it just by definition cannot be quantified. That's not possible. It can't be represented. There wouldn't even be enough photons in the universe to represent it, because we would, I mean, even if the best you could get is like what, a 1-to-1 representation. If we have an infinite universe, then just take every single fundamental thing in the universe and use it as a counting device, and then we would have quantified infinity. But that doesn't seem useful. It doesn't, even though I'm the one that said it, it doesn't even really make a lot of sense, even to me. But so there are certain things which, like, for example, can you imagine a square in your head? Pretty sure you can. Can you imagine an octagon in your head? Pretty sure you can. Can you imagine a 100-sided polygon in your head? I cannot. I don't think anybody can really do that. But we can imagine what a 100-sided polygon is. That's not, at least I think we can. It doesn't actually seem all that difficult. Now, infinities, although they're absurd, I mean, mathematicians know how to do so many things with them. We know about infinite sets and how those play into. So I'm not a math magician, and yes, I did say it that way on purpose. So I can't really give you anything sophisticated here, but they're used. I mean, they're used in things that seem fairly simple, like robotics. They're used in things that are more complex, like physics. We deal. Not we as in me, but physicists have to deal with singularities in their equations and their successful predictions that have come out of those. Black holes, for example, they're mathematically predicted many decades before they were confirmed to exist. But then just, I don't know anything about calculus or whatever. Don't know much trigonometry, right? So I can't really tell you much with respect to that, but it is used, and it has been used to advance mathematics before. So quantified, no. Is it still practically useful? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you say it can't be represented, I'd like to provide a little bit of a challenge on that one, and I'd like to provide a little bit of a push and see what you would say. See if you could press back. So how would you feel about the concept if I said to you, well, we represent numbers. When we're counting or we're doing mathematics, we could spell out numbers and we could say ONE and that's 1, or TWO and that's 2, and so on and so forth. But we don't normally spell out numbers when we're doing mathematics. We just, write the number we represent. We write them down with the angular with the symbol.
Yeah.
But what if I wanted to express infinity? All I would do is do the infinity symbol. Isn't the infinity symbol the numerical quantifiable symbol for the unquantifiable quantifiable concept of infinity?
I would say, I don't know what you would even call this, but it merely represents a concept. To say that equals that it's been quantified, I don't exactly know what you mean by that. Like, I can literally, like, our idea of what 1 is can be drawn, with a line. That's 1. And what's cool about that is there's only one of them, right? And I can do the same thing with 2. There's literally a singular symbol for 2. It just represents it. There isn't 2 of anything there when I do that. There's actually only 1 of something there when I do that. Maybe the Romans had it right, the way they did the way they did all those you don't after 3 they don't match anymore, so probably not really. But no, I don't think creating a symbol for infinity is quantifying infinity.
Okay, I'll challenge you again. What if I had have you seen Kelley and Planet Peterson? Have you guys seen those things? Those, like, people rig up and they have them at maybe at Epcot and amusement parks where you get in them and you got to get in a suit. They put a helmet on you and it's like those circular things and they spin you around in all circular directions, which represents a full range of three-dimensional motions.
Sure, yeah.
Then, I was thinking about something else too while I was in the mating queue that I could help, would help along with. But imagine one of those. You're moving in a full three-dimensional range of motion. Don't you think in that almost represents a certain form of infinity? And then if we could ever get a certain source of energy that would supply us with infinite energy, we have this idea that then at least we know that infinity in and of itself is something that is kind of tangible to a certain degree.
That flowchart of ideas made me more confused than anything we had talked about before that.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like what you're saying is because we have a symbol of something that makes it tangible. To simplify what you said.
When I was talking that, I didn't mean it was tangible. I was going to more quantifiable. But when I started talking about that kind of rig and ride you get hooked up to, then if you can move in a full range of three-dimensional motion, I mean, that is in and of itself a form of infinity.
Why? Why is the ability to move in 3 dimensions a representation of infinity?
Because
I'm confused too.
Because I'll explain it. To me, I think infinity is quite simple. And I think because if there is no range of if you're moving in a full three-dimensional range of motion without limit, you can go anywhere and do anything. Then the infinite is right at your fingertips.
Okay, so because in a 3-dimensional space, there are an infinite number of locations or whatever configurations within it, then that's a representation of infinity. That's no more of a representation of infinity than drawing the sideways 8 on paper or a number line. Like literally just draw a number line, start at -1, go to 1. There's an infinite number of digits, natural numbers or whatever, or real numbers, whichever one it is, between -1 and 1. So
yeah, I'm thinking of Zeno's paradox.
Yeah, that too.
Zeno's paradox? Did Zeno call tonight?
Pardon?
Or is that what is Zeno's paradox?
It's it has to do with infinity. That he had several of them, but I'm going to do the arrow one. If you shoot an arrow at a target, it before it can reach the target, it has to reach the halfway point, and before it can reach the halfway point, it has to reach the halfway point to that. And because there's an infinite regression, it can never go beyond. It can never hit the target, basically, because it always has to pass the infinite number of halfway points. And since it's an infinite number, it can never pass them.
Do you agree with this theory?
No, it's not a theory. It's a paradox.
What do you think about? Yeah, I know. What do you think about this paradox, Kelley? What's your opinion?
I think it illustrates how numbers can be kind of screwed up. Math isn't always a perfect representation of the world.
A finite set can contain an infinite series. If you talk to somebody that knows mathematics, they'll tell you the same thing. And what they'll also be able to do, maybe, is explain it, which I don't think either of us really can. But you can have an infinite series in a finite set.
I'll tell you what, I do understand this. I'm starting to understand this paradox thinking about my childhood and doing archery, because I never saw a single one of my arrows hit a friggin' target, and that's what I was aiming for. So maybe every single one of my arrows still going through an infinite regress.
Sounds like a skill issue.
Yeah, it's still trying to get past those halfway points, huh?
I'm blind, Planet Peterson. So maybe now you might feel a little bad.
Well, then you don't even know if they didn't hit the target.
Well, okay, so I'm not totally blind.
Okay. Okay.
I am visually impaired, though.
All right.
James,
I'll take your word for it.
We're almost out of time for the show, and I have one more call I'd really like to get to. So I would love it if you call back.
Guys.
I would love it if you call back and talk to us again, though. So please do. Okay, James?
Sure, yeah, thanks.
Thank you. All right, and we're getting close to those super chats. I got 2 more. I think we only need 1 more super chat. Miranda Rensberger, member for 1 year and $10. Kelley must be real because I'm currently looking at him on screen. Dan doesn't currently exist because I can't see him. You're right, Dan doesn't really exist at all. Caleb gave us 4.99 pounds. What the chuck? It's just $1. Stellar, man. What's your favorite world-ending conspiracy? World ending? I don't know. Do you have a world ending conspiracy?
I guess Skynet would be the only sort of thing. I've never really thought about it before, but that could definitely do it.
I think my favorite conspiracy is a takeoff on the flat Earth. Is that there's a whole chunk of the Earth that's there, and that the elites won't tell us because they're using all the resources that are there for themselves. I think that's maybe my favorite conspiracy theory, that there's a whole part of the Earth that is just as big as the Earth that we don't all know about. That is, to me, the craziest, silliest thing. But I'm going to go on to take this last call from Lee in Canada. Him. And he says, I understand the scientific method isn't about proving a hypothesis to be true, but to fail to prove it false. Do I have this right? Please discuss. Hi, Lee. How you doing? Hello, Lee.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Uh-oh. now I'm going to be in trouble.
Oh, yes,
so,
you sure are.
I don't know. Maybe I worded it right or wrong. I'm not sure, but I'm a science teacher. I'm also a math teacher, and I've studied enough philosophy to be confused. But it's my understanding that science is based on the scientific method, and that the scientific method uses inductive reasoning, where you're gathering evidence to try to find out if a hypothesis is false. And you never really prove that the hypothesis is true. But if we want to prove something, that's more in deductive reasoning, which I would do like if I'm teaching geometry in 2-column proofs, that sort of thing. What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's kind of a matter of philosophical. Like we all talk about things in loose terms. We have loose associations with terms. But so when you start speaking strictly like philosophically or logically, you can always nitpick what somebody's saying. Like, well, that's not really an example of blank because you're not doing this, that, or the other thing. Falsificationism was first popularized by Karl Popper. It's really attractive because it deals with exactly what you're talking about. 2 + 2 = 4. There's no, that can't not be true. It's essentially, it's not the same as a deductive argument, but it's in the spirit of what you were talking about earlier. Well, with science, there can always be missing information, or we get, and not even false positives, but like we can have ideas in science that say this is causing that, but they're kind of low resolution answers. And then we learn that there's actually something else in play here that contributes to it. So our original idea wasn't 100% true. So science doesn't deal in absolutes, but science can prove that things are false. That's a little bit that's a little bit better. So yes, this idea, if you take this framework, then you can discuss it that way. We just proved that the hypothesis isn't false, rather than proving that it's true. So I have more to say about that, but I want to let you, jump in a couple times here too.
Sure. I'm glad I'm not entirely. I have some idea about that. The one reason I bring it up is like I find a lot of times I'm an atheist, and a lot of times I'll get someone trying to defend religion, suggesting that science is no better than religion. They're basically the same thing, because you can't prove science just like you can't prove religion. And then so the idea of what exactly do we mean by proof then becomes very important in making the distinction between science and religion, and especially that bad argument about science being just another religion. Yeah,
words have multiple definitions. The word set has like over 200 different definitions, and proof in the deductive sense, or in the strict logical sense, or in the mathematical sense, means this very strict thing of where it is like I guess you could call it an absolute truth, or not even a brute fact, but like there's nothing else there. You're at the bottom of the barrel when you solve the mathematical proof. But proof can also just mean information that increases the likelihood of a conjecture. That's what proof means as well. I mean, we use that kind of term in the court of law. And again, in the court of law, you're not declared innocent. You're declared not guilty, right? It's either guilty or not guilty. In the same spirit of this, the way we kind of think about science in this philosophical sense, that's also what happens. You have to prove somebody's guilty beyond any reasonable doubt. It's not about absolutes or anything like that. But the thing with science is that science doesn't prove science, but there's this what you can call recursive aspect of it. So no, you can't use the scientific method to prove itself, absolutely. But what you can do is, if you apply the scientific method, working on whatever presuppositions you have about the natural world, about whatever, the scientific method yields the kinds of results you would predict. So it validates itself. And that's, we can call that recursion rather than like strict proof or something like that. Or in an even easier or a simpler sense, science works. Whereas religion doesn't have the ability to really explain anything. It makes absolutely no predictions. It doesn't contribute to epistemology in any kind of way. In fact, it's the only kind of support for it is where you do the exact opposite, the apologetics, where you retroactively try to fit explanations into data that actually isn't accounted for.
Good answer.
We could talk more, and then what comes to my mind when you say that too is, well, then of course faith raises its head. Then you can base knowledge on faith, according to some, and which would be the opposite of using scientific method to gain knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you start with axioms and presuppositions, but everybody has to do that. But like with science and testing the natural world, we know, like whatever assumptions you make, we know things about the natural world and those assumptions that we use, again, to get results about it. Whereas like with the religious claim, we don't know how miracles work. We don't know how a God does anything. So the idea that we would ever be able to do an investigation and be like, yep, yeah, the Red Sea definitely parted. We figured out how to supernaturally or miraculously explain that. It's like, no, you fundamentally cannot do that. The only thing you could ever possibly do is exhaust any alternative explanation, throw up your head and pretend that because other people didn't score any goals, that means that the ball went in your net. But that's not what that means at all.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Well, Lee, thank you for calling. I wish I had taken your call, or you had called and we had taken it earlier, because it was a great conversation. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And that will wrap up our calls for the evening. I got a few other things I want to do, though. First off, I want to thank Planet Peterson for being here. You were freaking awesome. I mean, I didn't do anything. You did all the talking tonight. That was great for me. You know, I didn't have to do anything. That was awesome. So if people wanted to find you and see more of you, where would they find you at?
I do most of my work on YouTube. So I have the other social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok. That's really it, actually. But most of my work is on YouTube. So catch me there. I upload about 3 videos every single day.
Awesome. And then I want to thank our wonderful, our amazing backup host who actually is a mathematician, Scott Dickey.
Hey, it was good call, or good callers, I mean, because there was lots of opportunities to share some good knowledge there, I thought. So it was good teaching opportunities. It's always good when those show up. I wanted to throw out my contribution to the question of the week. I have my own religious counterpart for a science claim, and that is global warming is not due to greenhouse gases. It's just because God left the oven on. I think that's it.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you.
And then I also wanted to ask Planet Peterson, you were talking about your books earlier and about how they're, debunking common misconceptions and that kind of thing. Did you come across any of during your research in that book, did you ever come across something that was just amazing to you and you had a big change of your own mind?
Oh, I know that I did. That's going to be, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to think of anything. There were some myths in my most recent book, The Facts That Aren't True one, that I thought were not true, but they actually ended up being true. One was that I had heard that Van Gogh didn't really cut off his ear. All he did was cut off the bottom lobe of it. I'd heard that before, and that's actually out there. But then when I did some more digging into it, we actually have the paper that the doctor that Van Gogh saw wrote up, and he wrote a diagram. And what actually happened was he cut off his whole ear except for his bottom lobe. So something got lost in translation there. Because I thought that would be one of the crazier ones in here, because one of the 2 or 3 things people know about Van Gogh is he cut his ear off. But there's this counter myth out there that turns out not to be the case. I know there were some others. I wish I would have written them down. I actually thought about doing a piece in the book that is facts that aren't true but turned out to actually be true, for all the stuff that I started with and then had to abandon. There just weren't very many of them. So yeah, I wish I could remember more off the top of my head.
I appreciate what you shared with us.
Yeah, thank you. And do you have any words of wisdom to leave us with?
Just keep thinking.
Keep thinking. Cool. That's a good one. I got one more super chat from Blind Limey for $5. Some of these calls make me feel like multiple pairs of male gonads speaking in tongues. In other words, it's a bunch of incoherent bollocks. And since we got all the super chats we were going to get, I promised you a live folk music concert to take us out of the show. So here it is, introducing Colin Yours.
Oh, hey. Oh, hello, guys. Hello. And yeah, do you mind if I answer the question of the week for a second?
Sure.
Gravity is because angels want you to stay close to the ground because flying is a sin.
All right. And
okay,
you ready?
Start out, so yeah.
Go.
It's pretty simple, 'cause a gift to be great, it's a gift to come down where we are today. In the lifeless sky, in the valley of death and delight. Wow, you did a terrible job of backing me up.
I know, I'm horrible.